On the dining table, 7 side dishes were laid out with the chilling precision of a surgeon. The only thing that dared to disturb the icy silence of this home was the steam rising from a clay pot of simmering stew. Clink, the sound of a spoon scraping against porcelain was sharp, piercing the quiet like a scream. Tae-suk, a man of 70, ate in silence, paying no mind to the empty chair across from him. On the floor beside the table, shards of glass from a shattered wedding photograph glittered like scattered salt. The front door was wide open, inviting the cold night air deep into the house. And that's when it happened. His son, Min-jun, burst through the doorway, breathless and panicked, his voice cracking the silence as he called for his wife. But Tae-suk didn't even flinch. He just clicked his tongue. "The soup is salty," he muttered. "Tell her to make it again." To understand this bizarre dinner, we must go back exactly 1 year. After his mother's funeral, Min-jun couldn't bear the thought of his father left all alone in the large, empty family home. Just for 1 year, he pleaded with his wife, Ji-eun. Just until he's back on his feet. Blinded by love for her husband and a desire to be the dutiful daughter-in-law their culture demanded, Ji-eun finally agreed. The spring sun was deceptively warm that day. She had no idea she was stepping not into a family home, but into a perfectly curated prison. Tae-suk greeted them with a benevolent smile, but behind his glasses, his eyes were cold and calculating, as if counting every piece of luggage his new daughter-in-law brought into his kingdom. At first, she thought he was just a tidy, diligent old man. But then came the first morning. At 4:55 a.m., while the sky was still ink black, a rhythmic knocking echoed from their bedroom door. Knock. 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 It was as precise and mechanical as a metronome. When a half-asleep Ji-eun opened the door, Tae-suk's words were like ice. "The sun is nearly up. A daughter-in-law shouldn't be so fond of her bed." This wasn't a gentle wake-up call. It was the first roll call in Tae-suk's kingdom. Ji-eun had to drag her tired body to the kitchen, where Tae-suk sat at the table, watching her every move like a warden as she washed the rice for breakfast. Hell, as they say, is in the details. Tae-suk's control went beyond anything she could have imagined. From the number of times she chewed her food to the precise angle she folded the towels, everything was subject to his critique. One evening, after she'd finished the dishes, he approached her. He held a clean plate up to the fluorescent light, inspecting it. "Your mother-in-law," he murmured in a low voice, "she always dried the dishes following the grain of the porcelain. This is wrong." It wasn't just nagging. He wasn't teaching her how to be a good wife. He was training an understudy, forcing her to become a perfect, living replica of the wife he had lost. The light in Ji-eun's eyes began to dim with each passing day. Her heart would tighten in her chest every time she opened the front door after a long day at work. Because there he would be, sitting in the center of the living room sofa as if on a throne, staring at the entrance. "You're 3 minutes late." For that, she had to bow her head like a sinner. She begged her husband, Min-jun, to move out, but his response only pushed her deeper into despair. "He's just an old man, he's lonely. Can't you just try to accommodate him? It's only for 1 year." Her husband, the man who should have been her protector, dismissed her torment as simple in-law drama, using late nights at the office as an excuse to stay away. Then one day, Ji-eun made a chilling discovery. The way he insisted the food be seasoned, the specific direction of the creases in his ironed shirts, even the style of clothes he pushed her to wear, it was all identical to photos of his deceased wife. Tae-suk wasn't treating her as a daughter-in-law. He needed a breathing doll to fill the void his wife had left. The makeup on her vanity had been subtly replaced with his wife's old brands. In her closet hung floral, old-fashioned dresses she had never bought. Ji-eun looked in the mirror and saw a stranger's shadow staring back. The true horror arrived on laundry day. Jiun opened her underwear drawer. The items she had casually placed inside were now perfectly organized by color and style, with a terrifying precision. There was no one else in the house. Just her and Tae-suk. The realization that her father-in-law, in the middle of the day, had opened her most private drawer and touched each item with his old, withered hands. The violation was so profound, it stole the very air from her lungs. She collapsed, unable to even scream. It felt like invisible eyes were watching her from every corner. This wasn't a home, it was a laboratory for his twisted obsession. And then, the day everything shattered. Jiun, sick with stress, had taken a day off work. Min-jun stopped by during his lunch break to grab a document, but froze when he heard shouting from inside. Peeking through a crack in the door, he saw a scene of pure madness. His father had forced Jiun into a chair at the dining table and was trying to physically force something onto her, a faded, worn-out apron. His dead mother's apron. As Jiun fought back, crying no, Tae-suk gripped her shoulders, his eyes wild with a chilling rage. "Wear it," he screamed. "Your mother-in-law always wore this when she made soup. Have you no respect?" On the floor, the soup Jiun had made with her aching body had spilled, forming a red puddle. Tae-suk's rage wasn't just about the apron. "She always sliced the green onions diagonally," he bellowed. "How dare you ruin the taste?" He wasn't just erasing her cooking, he was trying to erase her very existence. In that moment, Min-jun understood. His father had never accepted a daughter-in-law. He just wanted a puppet, a replacement for his lost wife. The vacant look in Jiun's eyes suddenly vanished, replaced by a burning, righteous fury. Jiun couldn't take it anymore. She shot up from the chair, a raw scream tearing from her throat. She ripped the apron he'd forced on her, shredding the fabric. "I am not your wife," she cried, her voice echoing through the house. "I am Jiun, your daughter-in-law." As Tae-suk stood frozen in shock, she grabbed their wedding photo from the table. Without a second of hesitation, she smashed it onto the floor. Crash, with the shattering glass, the fragile illusion of their family life was broken into a million pieces. Jiun ran, not even feeling the glass slicing into her bare feet as she fled out the open door. And now we are back in the present. Standing amidst the broken glass is Min-jun, holding an envelope left by Jiun. Divorce papers. Inside, there were no demands for money or property. There was only one request, written in trembling ink. "Ensure my name is never spoken in that house again." Min-jun clutched the papers in his shaking hand. The suffocating smell of stew still filled the air, and his father was still sitting at the table, spoon in hand, complaining that the soup was salty, as if the emotional carnage around him was nothing more than an inconvenient mess. Min-jun went to his room and packed a bag. As the sound of the suitcase wheels rolled across the floor, Tae-suk finally turned his head. "Where are you going?" "We have to eat dinner." The casualness in his voice was sickening. Min-jun didn't look back. "You eat, father," he said, his voice cold and final. "For the rest of your life. Alone." Thud, the sound of the front door closing was like a thunderclap in the empty house. It was a son's final, eternal goodbye to his father. Left utterly alone, Tae-suk lifted his spoon again. Clink, but this time, he couldn't swallow. His gaze was fixed on the empty chair across the table, the chair his daughter-in-law was supposed to fill, the chair that truly belonged to his dead wife. It was empty. No one wanted to be a prisoner in his perfect world. The tips of Tae-suk's fingers began to tremble. The crushing silence of the house became his true punishment, heavier and colder than any venomous word he had ever spoken. Now, in this vast house, only Tae-suk and the silence he created remained. And he slowly began to understand that the perfect home he fought so hard to maintain was never a sanctuary. It was a prison cell of his own making. A long shadow from his stooped back fell over the now cold stew. The alarm would ring again at 4 a.m., of course. But now, there would be no one there to wake. Not anymore. Not ever. So let me ask you, how peaceful is the silence in your own home? And that is where our story ends for today. A story of obsession disguised as duty, of violence disguised as love. A tragedy that, perhaps, is unfolding right now, somewhere in our own neighborhoods. We can only hope that Ji-yoon can erase the memories of that house, and finally live a life under her own name, completely and truly free. This has been Mystery True Stories.